Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to you all on behalf of the International Mentoring Center. My name is Sabah, and I will be your host this evening. It is a pleasure to bring together individuals from across geographies for what promises to be a highly relevant and a thought provoking session. As mentoring transcends borders, we are called to engage with greater awareness, adaptability, and cultural intelligence. Today's session is designed precisely to deepen that capability. Before we begin, a quick housekeeping points for you to remember. Please note that the session is being recorded. This session is for a total of 60 minutes. The presentation will run first, followed by the Q&A during the last final 15 minutes. This is an interactive session, so we encourage you to stay engaged throughout the session. Please feel free to use the chat box to share reflections or questions. It is now my privilege to introduce our speaker for today, Sushma Banthia. Sushma brings with her over 4 decades of professional experience, including more than 25 years dedicated to people development. As a certified coach, facilitator, and corporate training consultant, she has worked extensively with organizations, universities, and individuals across the globe. Her work is deeply rooted in a holistic philosophy, coaching the person, not just the problem, which has enabled her to meaningfully impact leaders across diverse cultural and organizational contexts. Sushma holds several esteemed certifications, including the ICF PCC, Geno's Emotional Intelligence Practitioner, MBTI, Thomas Profiling, and Strategic Leadership from the Flame Institute. Beyond her professional work, she is also committed to giving back, actively mentoring students and young professionals, shaping the next generation of leaders. We are honored to have her with us today to guide us through some of the nuances of mentoring across borders. Sushma, we are delighted to have you with us. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and a big welcome to everyone. And what a introduction. And one thing I would like to add to that is that I'm a constant learner. What I really love about interacting with people is that I learn so much from everyone. So are we ready to learn? And that's what we're going to look at right away. Multicultural mentoring, pitfalls and solutions. Oh boy, takes me back to some of the areas that I made mistakes in. And I would love to share that and get your ideas also. So we'll welcome everyone. And if we could just start by saying in the chat box, a hello to everyone. Also, if you could just tell me which country you are joining from. So Abdeladam, thank you so much. Morocco. Okay, we see India, Jitendra, USA, India, Saudi, great. Lovely. India, USA, India, KSA, okay. Yes. Ecuador. Yeah, if everybody could just type, that would be wonderful. We'd know which countries, because it's all about multicultural, right? Multicultural, UAE. Thank you. Jyotsna is joining from there. Okay, all right. So are we ready to go to the next part? And that is here. You know, you've already met me, and Sabha has so kindly introduced me. And here's a hello, a big hello, whether it's a morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is in your area. But a big, big, big hello, and let's move. So what I would love to know is, how are we going to do this session? It's a 1 hour session, packed, and an introduction. So we started with the welcome, right? And we'll share stories, experiences. Then look at some of these experiences that we've had. What could be behind it? What could be behind it? And actions forward. That's how we've laid this journey for today. Some requests, just as you've been doing right now, please keep interacting via the chat box. If at any stage you would like to really unmute, I think, Sabha, that can be managed, right? For a little bit of interaction or a question, something, right? Or a
Yes,
story
yes,
that you would like
definitely.
to share. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for all this. Okay. So moving right along, here we go. Yes. Okay. This is something when, the moment I was asked to do the session, and we said, what came up to my mind was one of the conversations I had a few years back. And it was a friend of mine who I knew. Okay. She was from UK, British, and she was saying, Sushma, you're Indian. And I wanted to ask you a question. Could you guide me? Could you help me here? And she says, I've been mentoring, coaching this Indian gentleman who's professional, senior, and I just don't know what's not landing. I said, okay, just tell me more. She says, I feel that he's not interested, that he's not gaining anything, it's not moving forward. But every time I ask him, how are the sessions going? He says, great. So would love to know, what do you think could be happening here? What do you think could have been happening here? If somebody would like to unmute, they can just raise their hands. Otherwise, you could please type in the chat box. Shyness of the mentee. Thank you, Sandeep. Yeah. Okay. Accent, maybe. Okay. Thank you, Jyotsna. Not having a common understanding of what success is. Thank you, Ted. Sandeep. Sandeep says, I experience this every day. Okay, so it seems to be like a common experience. All right. Yes, whatever answers you have put, it could be. There's no right or wrong answer. However, in this particular case, I just inquired a little deeper. And I said, tell me, why do you feel that, if he is saying everything is fine, what is it that makes you think that it's not? So she says, it's virtual. And he just keeps sitting. Sometimes he's on a sofa, sometimes he's somewhere in his house. Um, he doesn't even dress up, and he's in very casual clothes. Cultural, absolutely. Yes. It was not in the work environment. The way he looked at it, it's virtual. Here's my coach, and I need to listen to the content and everything else. He did not pay as much attention. And Sarah was the type of person who, yes, it's virtual, it's professional, and I need to be really dressed up, and I treat it as such, and I need to have, this is what the time at which it starts, this is the time at which it ends, and I will be there. Absolutely. So, what is this cultural aspect? How deep is it? What happens? So, are we ready just to have a little experience of what culture really is? I'm going to just stop sharing the screen for right now, if that's okay, so to be able to talk to you. What I would love to all of you to do a little activity with me, right? I'm sure you would have some book, notepad, something near you, hopefully. And I'm going to request all of you to do something. I know I cannot see you, but you just play along with me. And what I would like you to do is I'm going to request you to do it. Will you do it? If you will, then put a yes or give me a thumbs up, a reaction. Yeah, yes, okay. Got a few yeses and I've got a few thumbs up. Great, super. So, what I would like you to do is whatever book you have, notebook, notepad, anything, please put it on the floor. Done. Put that on the floor and now stand on it. Sabah, would you be able to do that? And if you say,
Don't think I can.
yeah, so you see, and why not?
It just doesn't feel right.
And if you really, why not? Sandeep says, I won't. I won't. Okay, not acceptable in my culture. We're taught to respect any words. Oh, wow. Yeah. But if you really look at it, what is paper? It's made of paper. What is paper? Paper is nothing but wood. And I'm sure you would stand on a wooden table. If you would stand on that wooden table, why are you not able to stand on this book? It's also paper, it's also wood. Yeah. Yes, Danny. Danny would like to speak. Is it possible to unmute him?
Yes,
Yes,
yes, he can
Danny.
unmute himself.
Go ahead,
He-
Danny, please.
Hello, you asking
Okay,
about me?
sorry. Yes,
Hello, I'm Abdeladim from Morocco. I'm a strategic project
yes.
manager, and I found your way of talking about us about culture is really interesting. Based on your experience, it's a good thing. But for me, your example is clear, is to drive us to see you, to say to you that the book, it's not just a paper, it fills with the learnings. And learnings are always above us so that we can move forward as a learners and not say that we have a great experience, the learning path is finished. This is my experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this perspective. Absolutely. Yes. And in some cultures, people are able to do that. In some cultures, we are not able to do it. That's how deep rooted it is. That's how deep rooted culture is. If in our cultures, we look at that learning. And in India, we even say Goddess Saraswati, right? Where does it come from? If you look at logic, paper, wood, yeah, why not? Then somebody says, maybe I could put you stand on newspaper, but not something we wrote or we learned from. Absolutely. Because why? As children, we were taught some of these things. We are blank pages when we come in. And then what happens? Right? This is exactly what happens. So if we look at this, exactly what you said, there is things that are visible for us. It's the iceberg model, explicit. You know what people are eating, how they're dressing, all these are visible to us. And I'm sure you're all very well aware of that. But what about what's below the surface? How aware are we of that? And if we see somebody doing something like this, it's like, because we see the whole world through our own lens. And a number of us, we don't realize how we are actually interpreting their actions through our lens and also forming negative impressions, negative or positive impressions. That's how deep rooted it is. And it's automatic. Let's go a little further into this. With the values, beliefs, what else comes in that implicit culture? The way we speak, hierarchy, it's all shaped by the geography, where you're staying, the climate, the weather, so many things. I mean, I could fill this up with things, right? But if you have a question, feel free to stop and ask. Stop me and ask. So culture is not about right or wrong. It's really about different defaults. There was once when I was asking somebody, and they made very strong comments, because it's just so deeply wired into us. Oh, they are eating non-veg, non-vegetarian. And so they are not good people. And no matter what I would say, I'm not able to get them to see things differently because it's so deeply wired into them. And each one of us, and it's really something that would draw your attention to, it's not about right or wrong. We're not here to judge anyone. We're here just to understand each other and see how can we work together for the common good. You as a mentor, them as a mentee. Just as this, with Suresh and Sarah, she got the impression that he was not interested. And she was not excited about mentoring him because that's the way she interpreted his behavior. So the behavior interpretation is what we're looking at. Lots of research has been done on this from Hofstad's times and IBM, etc. We will not get into the details because we're not going into a lesson in anthropology. What I've done is I've picked out a few of the cultural dimensions which have a direct impact on the way type of work that we do, right? So sharing just a few, and let's look at it. Here we go. And there are certain cultures, and these are some cultural dimensions that we're going to look at. And it is really about hierarchy. There are certain cultures which low on hierarchy, egalitarian. We're all in it together. You can say what you want. It's okay. And there are certain other cultures which are extremely hierarchical, and the levels and how one level speaks to the other is also very clear. Rights, privileges, what needs need to be honored. Now, that may be cultural. For example, I'm from India. And I know that, we were taught that when the elders enter the room, you will, wherever you are sitting, you will stand up. When they sit down, and then they go. Then you sit down again. How do you address them? Do you make eye contact or no eye contact? Very important, because this is hierarchy. And what happens? Because we've been brought up that way, the same cultural dimensions come into the workplace. I worked in the US for 15 years. And I remember that it took me a while to get used to being seated when my boss walked into the conference room. I would automatically just rise about 5 inches. Then realize, okay, this is the US, egalitarian and low on hierarchy. I don't need to stand up whenever he comes in. Respect is shown in different ways. Eye contact. And in spite of knowing all this, it's something that just slips your mind. Now, having lived in the US for so many years, when I moved back to India, I lived in the US for 15 years. And when I moved back to India, we took an apartment in an apartment complex. And I was one of those who was helping out with, the maintenance. And I was in charge of the security guards. Now, as for the security guards, I'm the owner in that complex. And so my state level in the hierarchy is higher than his. And there was once when I was, watching the security guard coming down the whole driveway, and he kept his head down. And I was so upset. I said, he's just looking only at his shoes. He's not looking here, there. And I went to his supervisor. I said, how is he being a security guard if he's not even looking, left, right, and he's just looking at his shoes? Is that the way he is going to be doing his rounds? And the supervisor said, ma'am, just give me some time. Let me go talk to him. And he came back to me. He said, ma'am, he says, how can I look at ma'am? I saw her there, and so I put my head down. I was walking. It is a sign of respect. This is what we're looking at when we say hierarchy. Okay. So now let's look at, where do we stand? We've got different people from different countries. And what does it really mean? When they did their research, it is actually a continuum. From low to high, it's not a binary thing, low, medium, or high. It could be anywhere. And here's just a sample, Philippines is on the higher side, China, India, USA, Australia. You can see these numbers with all the research that they've done. Now, it doesn't mean that, 94 is just 94 exactly. It's a spectrum. That means approximately in that area. Okay, what else does it really mean? When they say that Philippines, they've taken the average of the entire country. India, 77 is the average. USA, 40 is the average of how people generally behave. Individuals in that country may be at a different level because of our experience, because of our way of thinking, because of our personalities, etc. So what I would love to have each one of you do is, from 0 to 100, where would you place yourself on this scale? What number would you give yourself? Are you more on the hierarchical side or more on the egalitarian side? Or where would you put a number for yourself in your behavior with others? It would be nice if you could write it in the chat box. Just make a guess. Thank you. Yes. And what we can see is that, I love some of the comments. And Sabha, if you could also just keep monitoring the chat. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, thank
definitely.
you. Yeah, because I think there's some very interesting comments coming up, and it would be great to get a little discussion going. Okay, so we have Laurie saying 10, Renu saying 60, Sandeep 45, 890, Ruffles is 60. Thank you for that. It's just a guess as to where you think you are. So even though, say, in India, I think we had two people from India, we had some people from US, and Ted was really also made some comments there. It'd be lovely to get their thoughts if we could. Ted, would you like to just tell us a little bit more about how you see the US? If you could
Sure.
unmute. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Happy to. Yeah, happy to. And thank you so much for the presentation. It's wonderful to see looking at the cultural differences. One of the challenges we have, setting aside that individual settings and individual life's experiences impact this, understanding that culture in an inner city in the Midwest is different than a rural area in the South in the US. Setting that part aside, one of the common themes that's a nuance to the hierarchy aspect is explicit hierarchy, the boss, the manager, the supervisee, and implicit hierarchy, which is even when you're in a condition or a setting where it's supposedly flat, there are still some implicit biases we may not be aware of, and those that we are aware of, whether we choose to respond to them in different ways or not. So I would suggest the US is actually very, very hierarchical. It's just not as explicit a hierarchical structure.
Thank you. Thank you for that perspective. Yes, there are implicit hierarchy. Yes, definitely. And I can relate to that because while I was working in the US, when I was part of as a team, I mean, the way people interacted, what we said to each other, and how much I knew about how they were thinking versus the moment I became their boss, then after 6 months, I actually lost touch with what were they really thinking because they did not because yes, there's a little bit of a dimension of power and authority, and you are going to be doing their appraisals.
Exactly.
So
And this is where it comes in most, is those performance reviews when things that were unwritten, that were simply best practices or worst practices show up and is often a surprise to the employee about various actions, projects, whatever it is that they've been working on, that hierarchy is still very much there. And you may have had a physical impulse to stand. All the other people in the US, when the boss walked in, had a response when the big boss stepped in. It was just more internalized.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those perspectives. Lovely. I'm loving this type of interaction. And yes, please feel free, anyone, to just come in. Okay, so when we're looking at this and we said we're looking at multicultural, mentoring, how would this possibly play up if we were doing if we are all from the same culture, or whether, the way I look at hierarchy versus the way, even if you're from the same culture, it could be different. Individuals have culture. And we'll look at a few examples later. Right? Let's move on, if that's okay with everyone. And thank you for participating. Let's look at another dimension. Another one which plays up constantly and right across the world is time. So when they did the research, there's so many people, Hofstede, Edward Hall, and research continues, and that they found that there was a dimension of there are certain people, certain cultures which are monochronic. Time is sacrosanct. If they say we will be there at 2 p.m., they will be there at 2 p.m. generally. Yes, it will not be 5 minutes past 2. They plan well. They like it, yes? There are others which are more what they call polychronics. They like to do multitasking, they do so many things, and relationships are generally more important than the time. And 2 o'clock means somewhere in the vicinity of 2. For example, 5 or 10 minutes, if they come a little slightly late, what we would consider late, because if, say, the meeting was supposed to be at 2 o'clock, and it's only 10 minutes, no? It's only 5 minutes, no? Whereas somebody from, say, Germany, And I remember in one of the sessions, 7:30 sharp means 7:30 sharp, she would start. If it's up at 8:30, she closes the session. That's it. That's the way. Very respectful. Again, we're not looking at good, bad, right, wrong, or being judgmental. It's just how people are wired. And as I was talking, in spite of me knowing some of this and having the, theoretically, but my very first time when I went to Oman, the session was supposed to start at 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, there was just nobody in the room except me. And then slowly one or two people came in, and there were 15 people and this is supposed to be a managerial effectiveness program. And then they come in, and then they said hello to everyone, they interacted, and then we started the session only at 8:45. And they were all very comfortable with it. And I'm going, oh my God, how am I going to complete everything? People haven't come in. And I could have jumped to a conclusion that they're not interested, but that would have been very erroneous. It's just that we're different. People who are monochronics generally try to plan. They plan their days well in advance. They do not like changes. They can adapt to change. It's not that they don't, but they prefer not to. And it's better to tell them well in it. Whereas, for example, in India, especially in the smaller cities and towns, if I say, okay, okay, let's have something, 1 month. Oh, 1 month, it's too far away. Talk to me closer to the time. My mother will say things like that. So what happens if we're working with different people, somebody who's a monochronic, somebody who's a polychronic? We would get the impression that they're not interested. Or if you're from polychronic, you'll say, oh, this person is so task-oriented, they don't care about me as a human being. They're only interested in just completing it as a check mark activity, tick mark activity. Okay, let's look at a few more. Yes, this again, of course, we're all communicating constantly. And this is another one which comes up very, very, very often. There are certain cultures which direct communication. What they say is what they mean. And there are others which you got to infer what they mean by listening to the non-verbal, the tone, the little bit of the body language, maybe a little bit of the context. So they may not say it directly, and we've got to. So what is direct communication? Some examples. So supposing somebody came to my house and I asked them, would you like a cup of tea? And if they were from the direct, they were from that direct, they would say, yes, thank you, or no, thank you. And that's exactly what they would mean. Whereas somebody else, indirect, would say, no, I think I'm fine. It's okay. Now from the tone and everything, yeah, they would really like it, but they don't want to say. And I'm sure as you're seeing this, you're able to see some of the countries that we put there. Yeah. And what would it mean? How would it show up in our communications? Let's take a look at that. Mentoring. Sabha, I would love your help, or if somebody else would like to volunteer, let's look at some. So if you were from a direct and giving direct feedback, say to somebody whom you're mentoring, it would be, this presentation was unclear. You need to structure it better. Sabha,
Yeah.
would you help?
Yes, definitely. I will read the indirect part. You've put in good effort. Maybe we can look at how to make the flow even clearer.
So I can really sense the little bit of hesitation. Should I say this? Should I not say it? How will it be received? Yeah, thank you. Okay, supposing you were challenging somebody while the mentoring process is on. I don't think this approach will work.
That's an interesting approach. How do you see it working in this situation?
Okay, let's go to the next one. Maybe lack of progress. These, I'm sure, situations we face while we're mentoring. You didn't complete the action items we agreed on.
I noticed we didn't move forward on the actions. What got in the way?
Would one of you like to unmute and help me read some of these? Suggesting an improvement. You need to be more confident in meetings. I don't see any hand up. So Sabha, I'll just request you in the... okay, somebody did put... Go ahead, please.
Well, really, it's very interesting, and thank you for this slide, because I am working on that based on our culture with the mentoring of my manager. I am studying that every time I am sending an email as me as a project manager, but sometimes I send an emails to the directors, and the directors in a silo organizations are experienced. My way of talking directly, it's not good in this context. So that every time I evaluate my words and finding those propositions to have an indirect measures, it's really interesting. I don't know if there is more example for that because it's useful for me. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you. Yes. So the indirect would be you need to be more confident in meetings with the direct, and the indirect would be Sabah?
What might help you feel more confident when you speak in meetings?
And when you want to say something, I disagree with your conclusion.
Can we explore another perspective here?
Thank you. Thank you for that help, Sabah. And yes, so direct, indirect, so we've got to really look at some of these aspects as we communicate. Because if we give direct feedback and they come from an indirect culture, it would not be received well. May not. And if you're coming from an indirect culture and you're giving all this, in this way, softening it up, and the person says, why are you saying it straight? Tell me, what do you mean? Tell me like it is. It's okay. And we have a tough time. And there are times, as Sabah had mentioned, I do a lot of work with students, and they come from an indirect culture. And when if I were to give them direct feedback, they would actually say, oh, my coach is not interested in me. My mentor is not interested in me. They're very tough, very strict. That's how I would appear to them. And when that heart-to-heart connect, there's all these dimensions put together. It's not just one dimension by itself, right? So this was just to give you a flavor of it and see, right? Okay, shall we go to the next one?
So, Sushma Lori has mentioned that that she prefers to speak in more indirect communication as a mentor. So I just thought she's put in the chat box. I thought I'll read it out for you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah. So again, it could be from culture, which is direct in communication generally, but sometimes we as a personality might prefer a different way. Also, it depends on what role we are playing. So, for example, if you look at a lot of the indirect type of communication, very often that's the way, as a coach, as a mentor, sometimes we are taught that because we want to literally extract the information, and we want the mentor or the coachee or the mentee to think and come up with their answers. But there are times when we're just having a conversation and things like this. So, for example, I still remember that one of my cousins had brought up in the US completely. And when he moved to India, as a college student, and we were working on a newsletter, and there was somebody who had written an article, and he just gave the feedback, and he says, who's written this article? I mean, it's just not acceptable and not of the type of quality. And I had to calm him down. I said, no, wait, don't say things like this. You turn them all away. You've got to have a softer approach to saying something like this. It's too harsh in this society, right? Okay, let's look at something else. Also, here we have something which we call another dimension, and that is, how do you really get people? When do they start trusting you? So there are certain cultures which are task-based. Okay, this is the contract. This is what we're going to do, and this is. Other cultures are very relationship-based, meaning we have to first build a rapport, gently get to know them, build that relationship, and then you start the mentoring process. Then you start the relationship building. I remember reading about it years ago, and there were so many people who went to one African country, which is relationship-based, And the tribe, they just couldn't get the business. They just couldn't get the business. And there was this one gentleman who had written this article, and he said, when I went there, I just chatted with them, built relationships, talked to them, did not discuss business at all. And it continued for 3 days. And on the third day, the chief said, you're the first person who's really spent time getting to know us. And now let's talk business. And he managed to get the business. Similarly, even when we're mentoring, sometimes we are very, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. This is what we need to do. What is it? Or there are certain people, when they come from relationship-based cultures, they would like to have a little bit of interaction for 5-10 minutes, sometimes even more. And once they start trusting you, then it goes ahead. This is just a few sampling of some of them. I'm sure you got the idea now. And let's go a little ahead. Okay. So let's see from a mentor-mentee point of view, what could be happening. Would love it if you unmute yourselves and answer. So what you observe, let's put it the whole package together now. What you observe is the mentee is quiet, agrees quickly, and doesn't share views. So what do you think might be happening? What could be coming in the way? Either in the chat box or feel free to unmute. Yes, Mona, please go ahead.
Yeah. I was just wondering, they could either be apprehensive or timid, maybe still thinking.
Mona, your voice is very faint. If you could just speak up a little louder.
Okay, is that better?
Yes, yes, definitely better. Thank you.
So probably either they're still thinking of the point or they're a bit shy. Maybe my comment was a bit blunt to their expectation, or
Yes.
maybe the point was very strongly put, where they feel intimidated maybe or a bit shy.
True.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Right. So it could be hierarchy. Could be. We don't know. We're just saying what may be happening. Respect for authority. So I have noticed, just you said, when we say shy, very often, it comes across as shyness, what you're saying, Mona. Absolutely. But I have noticed that when they are of a certain hierarchy and I'm doing that, but if I leave them with somebody else and then they start talking so freely. So it is the respect for authority, the hierarchy which plays, and they just, yes, whatever you say, yeah, they don't really share their point of view. So now, if my mentee is from that type of a culture or this is what that behavior, what as a mentor should I do? Any ideas? Anybody? What could I do? Because we definitely want them to open up. Yes, yes, Sandeep, go ahead, please.
I think sometimes if you use some sort of icebreakers with the mentee, that helps, especially bridging the cultural gap. Even I have come across mentees who are like 20, 30 years younger to me, younger than my kids. And
yes,
it does become a challenge to sort of, even get to their level and see the world from their side of the, So
yeah,
playing some sort of icebreakers, making them accept you, that
yes,
itself, I think, is the first challenge.
right.
And after that, I think the life becomes much easier. That's where that hierarchical, non-hierarchical kind of cultural, things break
Thank
down.
you. Yeah. Thank you for the suggestion. Thank you. Lovely. Especially when I have this white hair, gray hair. And, oh, yes, ma'am, tell me what we should do. They come that way. Yeah. Yes. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Abdulladim?
You can say Abdel. I am working with some project managers in sub-African Sahara. They couldn't talk Appel my name correctly. They say Abdeladim. I said small thing, Abdel. Hello, Abdel.
Thank
small
you.
and good. Well, really about this example, For me, sometimes the mentor have to reflect his way of mentoring. If the mentee is quiet, agrees quickly, doesn't share views, and he is talkative, and he has a great personality, it depends. Sometimes the mentor needs to be quiet and reflect what could be changed in the mentoring experience.
Yes, true.
This is one thing. Sometimes there is a kind of personality of a mentee. I'm sorry, based in your time. There is that is too quiet, and he has a conservative personality. The mentor, if he has a promoter personality, high speed and red profile, he need to slow down. He need to slow down. So that they can converge in a good mentoring experience in the next sessions. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abdel. Yes. So, when we ask specific questions, all these ideas are fantastic. What we said, just do some icebreakers. This could be happening. Just observe them, say them, encourage them, whatever we want to do. Yes, but we need to, even when we do the contracting at the beginning. So do we go straight into contracting or not? Let's look at this. So, okay, something that may happen. Agreed actions not completed. So what may be happening here? Should we just go ahead? Okay. Yeah, they've said no. Polychronics. They have a different time orientation. You said, okay, we will complete it by such and such. No, something else has come up. Something, and okay, one day he said, yes, we'll complete it by Thursday, but we've not. Okay, it's just a big deal. Polychronics, something else has come up. They're quite fine with it. So as a mentor, what do we need to do? Here, co-create the realistic timelines. Small actions, check for feasibility, what can come in the way, how do we really work together? If something like this happens, what will you do? How will you inform me? How will you make sure you are on track? Having some of those dialogues would really go a long way. Right? Okay. Mentor focuses on goals. Mentee seeks guidance relationship. This is pretty much what I was just sharing, when I said, okay, I want to say, okay, what is the goal? I'm from a hierarchy which is task, relationships. Okay, I want to get to know you. When I know this is happening, one complete session just goes in chatting and breaking the ice. And then the subsequent sessions are just so smooth. Then they'll come, I want to, you tell me. You tell me. Yes, in mentorship, we do a little bit of advice, we do, but we also want them to be partners, right? Oh, what do we do? Yeah, let them know. We are going to be on a journey together. We're going through this together. It's okay for you to share. I will also share. We learn from each other. We talk about all this as we are contracting in the beginning, so that these expectations are set very clearly. And we definitely invite them. No, I'd love to know what you say, what you think. And we will share. We'll let you know. Yeah, so it's really just this is again a sampling. There's just so many more that we could look at. What is the whole idea and where are we headed? And that is, most of our pitfalls really come from misinterpreting behavior without understanding the culture. Because it's so hardwired, it's so deeply ingrained in us. Just as we said, some of us would not be able to stand in the book. Some of us would be very uncomfortable if we did not start on time. Others would not be as uncomfortable. Every part of it, some of us are very uncomfortable with direct, some would not be comfortable. And we've got to really, really keep all this in mind as we go ahead to make sure, because the way we interact with the mentee makes a huge difference to the type of results and the impact that we do have. Right? So with that, in this intro to multicultural mentoring, just giving a little bit of sampling and keeping this going, what else What else? These are some of the dimensions of culture. But yes, language, words. And I remember, I mean, when we're looking at it, the accent, maybe, yes, we have to put this thing and then maybe write it down, or it could be words. So in India, for example, mad means that you need to be in an asylum. Whereas in the US, oh, I'm very mad means I'm very angry. And it took me a long time to get used to the word mad, because to me, mad means you are insane. You needed to be put in an asylum and you need a psychiatric treatment. So if he ever says, oh, you're mad, and look, I'm not mad, it would lead to a major conflict if he said something like that. Similarly, there are so many gestures we need to be very careful about. And it's not only just cross country, even within the same country. So, for example, in India, the northern part of India versus the southern part. And this happened just recently to me, just 3 days back. Somebody was from the southern part of India and they went, hey, what are you saying? And they did this gesture. What do you say? And it is just an inquiry. What does this mean? Whereas this in northern parts of India would be very offensive and it would be threatening. So just wanted to introduce you to all this. Cultures, language, words, gestures, how deeply is it ingrained in us? What are we going to do about it? And these are some of the pitfalls as well as the solutions. Both are with us and within us. We need to be careful and interpret behavior and think, what else could be in that? Instead of jumping to a conclusion about that behavior. So, Sabah, I think we have a few minutes, just maybe a few questions, and then I'll wrap it up with the action plan. Would that be okay?
Yes, that'll be perfect.
Yeah, just a couple of, if anybody has any questions or somebody would like to share something, share your own stories, share your own experiences. That would be wonderful. Either in the chat, is something appearing in the chat?
Yes. Abdul Adim has said that we are struggling with immature hybrid agility, where rituals exist but silos remain, because these silos are led by managers with direct, long-standing relationships with their leadership. How can we implement systematic change from the bottom up or middle out without it being perceived as a threat to their established authority?
Very interesting, but would you really be following are you trying to say you would like to bring about a cultural change, or is it just the mentoring part of it? Looks like more like bring about a cultural change to me. Yes.
Yes, we are working on a project to have a cultural transformation, because we have in a transformation from IMC, an association, to a bank. I need to have this project to change our culture. That is why I asked this question, to use that in my relation with our consulting firm.
Sure. And so if there's a cultural change coming about, then first we need to really align on how we're working together, what are the ways of working, which is what we call the ways of working when we're doing, for example, team coaching. We actually sit and talk about it. Okay, how would we address? What would make a difference? What would be acceptable, not acceptable? And then also, if somebody did not follow those rules and agreements, what is the action to be taken? Who calls it out? Some of these things have to be really talked about together, and then we can start breaking those silos. Because if you're really looking at a cultural change in your organization. Thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, Sandeep, go ahead.
Also raised his hand.
Yeah.
I had a very funny experience about 4 years back.
Okay.
Just out of COVID, one of this top performing girl was assigned to me as a mentee. And similar ice-breaking sessions, literally 2 or 3 sessions, we just had chat. She was from other part of the country. She was asked to sort of, I was asked to mentor her, to support her, push her on the technical career path. But after sort of this couple of ice-breaking sessions, this girl sort of confides in me saying, you know what, Sandeep, I'm not really interested in technical things. I'm interested in pursuing horticulture.
Okay.
I said, okay, no, that's completely different. I have no, other than the spelling, I have no idea of anything that goes in
Horticulture.
that field. But
Mm.
I can just help you maneuver your, choice to a logical next step. And she was happy kind of going through that. So what exactly you want to do, what are your assets, what are your
Mm.
kind of investment capacity, all of that.
Right.
Apparently she did, and in 2 years later, she actually quit the job and now has a full-time some green farming activity about 20 kilometers from here in Pune.
Mm.
So, completely
Mm.
different, memorable experience for me.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing so much. Okay, in the interest of time, I think we'll just move on and, you can always take up things and take out. So let's reflect. So from this little appetizer, I don't even call it a complete main course meal. It's an appetizer. I mean, would love to know, just reflect and maybe write it down. What stood out for you? Whatever stood out for you, why do you think it stood out for you? And what about it is important? And because you came in for the session today and something has touched your heart, triggered a thought, what action would you take from now onwards, which would be slightly different? What one action that you would take when you go in for your next mentoring session?
So people have mentioned a lot in the chat box. Sandeep has
Sure.
said clearly identifying the different types, monochromic, polychromic, hierarchical, Gregorian, etc. James has said this is a process or a discipline. Humera has said I will focus on my words. Then again, Jamie has said that it needs to be practiced.
Definitely.
And Mona has raised her hand. So
Sure. I think that, yeah. Go ahead, Mona, please.
I was just thinking maybe if I'm able to see the big picture instead
Mm-hmm.
of just listening to the little words or body language or all of that. And I would try to be more ready beforehand, like when I see the name, if there is any information I could take, and then I would go into discovery and so on.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Mona. Yes, most definitely. Abdul, Sandeep, thank you all. Thank you for participating so beautifully. I've really enjoyed this interaction with all of you and would love to stay in touch. If there are any questions or any stories you'd like to share, I would love to hear from that. Very happy to connect. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. It's been a pleasure and love to hear your stories. Thank you so much.
thank you, Sushma, for sharing your expertise and your insights so generously with us today. And thank you to all the participants for your thoughtful experience, presence, and engagement. At IMC, we believe that mentoring, when practiced with the intention and global sensitivity, has the power to shape not just individual careers, but the entire leadership ecosystems. We look forward to continuing this journey with you through our upcoming sessions and initiatives. Wishing you all a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much.